Hello, you're very welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Finalwhistle.ie League of Ireland podcast. We have a First Division focus this week with the fact that no Premier Division games are taking place due to the international call-ups this week. So here's what we have coming up on the show. Coming up right after this introduction is Kevin O'Connor of Cork City, who will be talking to us all about things on Leith's side. Later on in the programme, we'll be talking to Wexford Football Club's Denny Corcoran. And as always, we will have our chat with Diarmuid Kearney. And this week, as I said, we'll be having a First Division focus. We'll also have an exclusive interview with Kevin Doherty of Drogheda United after their dramatic win over Dundalk FC in the Louth Derby last week. But taking us into our first guest, here's Kevin O'Connor. Kevin, I'm delighted to have you on the programme. It's great to see you.
Hey, Kieran. Thanks for having me on. Anytime.
Kevin, opening day draw against Longford, but since then you've had 3 wins on the bounce, but more importantly, not a single goal conceded this season in the First Division. You must be absolutely delighted with the start that you've had.
Yeah, look, obviously we're 6 games in. You know, we've been playing well. Longford was a difficult game. We never really got going in it, but after that, you know, things have started to click. But as you said, it's only a start really. So it's stuff to build on. Look, we're still there's still a lot that we have to work on, but so far it's been good, and the vibe is good around the place, so we can't complain.
Speaking of the vibe around the place, you know, from my own experience of going down to Turner's Cross, the crowd is just absolutely fantastic. Now I understand because of the difficulties that the club face with the relegation and everything, the crowd's dwindled, but now all of a sudden this season you're seeing once again record-breaking attendances at the Cross. It seems as if there's that because performances on the pitch have been good, but also that's replicated by what's happening off the pitch. It seems like the good vibes are back, so to speak.
100%. Look, I think it all kind of started. Look, it was obviously a difficult period for the club when they did get relegated from where they had been, you know, just a couple of years before it. Which is obviously disappointing, and things didn't go the way they had planned. But, you know, I think ever since Colin came in, you know, he's kind of put in a few building blocks and he's gone from there, and the club has just gone from strength to strength. You can see it. I think everybody around the league, you know, didn't realise how much they missed the League of Ireland and the games with COVID, you know, playing behind closed doors. It was different as a player, 100%. It was way different, you know, the atmosphere was non-existent, you know, so you kind of had to build on it yourself. But look, we know down here when we're doing well just how good the crowd is and how hard it is for opposition teams, you know, but we never expected to get the numbers that we're getting this year. And the fact that we've been playing well in front of them, you know, that draws them back every week, you know, so we can't complain. We're delighted with how the crowds are coming in. We're delighted with, you know, the energy around the place, you know, everything is positive, and that's, look, a lot of that is down to the manager, down to Colin and what he's brought into the club.
You were at Shelbourne, and before that you were at Waterford. I know that there was another spell at Cork before that, but what enticed you? Was it Colin, or was it just to go home, so to speak, back to Cork, since you've had so much success there?
A bit of both, really. Obviously, I really enjoyed it last year with Shelbourne. You know, we won the league and we had a great group, and you know, there was a lot of uncertainty throughout the year of what was going to happen at the end of the year, and that kind of took its toll on a lot of players. You know, there was a few lads that decided they wanted to leave early before any decision was made. You know, and then there's a lot been told, you know, that they're not going to be kept on. So it was disappointing ending, I suppose, to such a good season with how everything went. But look, I played with Colin down here years before, and I know how good of a person he is, how good of a trainer he was, how good of a player he was, and how good of a coach he was going to be. So it didn't take too long for him to well, it was more me kind of convincing him, I suppose. I think that, you know, I wanted to show him that I wanted to come back, which I did, because I've always enjoyed playing in Cork. I always loved playing in Cork. And look, I could see what he was building, and it was a no-brainer for me to come back.
Do you think, though, that you mentioned it there, you won a First Division medal, you also won a Premier Division medal with Cork in 2017, an FAI Cup in 2016, and we spoke about it off air. It broke my heart that day, but you know, the experience that you got both here and also in England. Now, I know that your time at Preston, there was a lot of loan deals and kind of time away from the club, but all that experience will count, including especially last year, to try and push Cork to go for that promotion push for this year.
Yeah, 100%. I think the experience of winning, kind of sticks with you. Once you get into that habit, you don't want to get out of it. And obviously, a few years ago, when I did get my move to Preston, I thought, right, this is it, kick on, and things didn't really go my way. And looking back on it, I'm disappointed with how it went, obviously. But I kind of had to restart, and I came back to Cork, and at the time, the club was kind of a bit in limbo. It didn't know which direction it was going in, and in hindsight, it's easy to look back and say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have gone back there, and maybe I shouldn't have done this. But being honest, I probably wasn't in the best form of my career at the time either. So, things like that kind of stick with you. The relegation was always one thing that stuck with me, because I was here a few years ago when we were winning the league and winning the cup, as you were saying, and the highs of it was so high, but then the lows of it, of getting relegated with the club, was one that always stuck with me. When I moved to Shelbourne last year, I felt like I needed to get away, get out for a time being, and get into an environment where, a different environment, I suppose, to see how things operate. And luckily, we had a great team, we had a great manager, and everything better, and we won. And that gives you the experience then of knowing how to win games, and we were very good at that. And obviously, Ali Gilchrist came down with me then this year down to Cork, and he's the very same. He knows how to win games, and that's what we're trying to embed into the lads this year, I suppose, because they're such a young team that a lot of them had a lot of growing pains last year. So we're trying to give them that experience to help them over the line this year. And so far it's going okay. But look, as I said, we're only a little bit into the season, so we have to make sure we carry it on for 35, 36 games, whatever the season is.
Yeah. It's a long year when you think about it. Colin Healy as manager, like, he was a great player. We all remember that. I say it was probably one of the first viral League of Ireland goals, the overhead kick against St. Pat's.
Yeah.
He seems to be a manager that has a good style and a good influence on you. But more importantly, I think because, as you said, he's from Cork, he knows what it takes, to be a Cork City player. And now he knows what it takes to be. It probably would have taken a local, a bit like John Caulfield previous, that it would take a local lad to understand the fabric of the club to get it back to successful winning ways.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think it's such a unique place. Cork. It's the once you're down here, you kind of get the vibe of it's it feels like it's a bit of us against the world, and it kind of is, because they're outside Dublin, and they've never really gotten the praise that
I've gotten that vibe every time I've gone there.
Yeah, exactly. So we use that as motivation, and it is, because it's such a good place. It's one of the best places I've ever been. I love it down here, and I love the club just as much. And Colin's, he's obviously from here, but he's been away. He's been everywhere. He's played here as well, and he knows what it takes to be successful here. And obviously, he was here when John was here, and he's seen what it was to be successful and what John did to make the place successful. And Colin's just kind of building on that, but he's doing it his own way, which is great, And look, he's blessed that we'll follow him until the end of the, we'll follow him all day long, because he has that respect from everybody. He has that kind of aura that look, you don't want to get on the wrong side of him, or he will go through you. But look, that's his last resort. But he will do it if he has to do it. But I think that respect, that he's been there, he's done it. Everybody kind of follows him, and that's all we can ask.
I've been saying this, I've been harping on about it all during the start of this podcast this season. It's probably the most competitive first division that I have seen in an awful long time. You've got yourself, you've Galway, you've Waterford, you've Wexford now creeping up kind of in that fourth position. It's one of those leagues really that the first one blinks, it could be faithful in a lot of respects.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It's extremely competitive. We have Athlone on Friday, who I'm not sure if they have any points yet, or if they do have very low points. But the video we're looking at them, they've been in every game. They've had chances every game to win them games. So it just shows how competitive it is. Obviously, you have Galway under John. They're always going to be thereabouts, because they grind out results no matter what. As you said, you've Wexford are after coming through. They're putting more into it this year than they probably had in previous years, which is great to see, because you want to see clubs doing well as well. Waterford came down, kept the majority of their players, so they'll be expected to jump back up. But yeah, we lost to Galway earlier in the year at home, and that was disappointing. But look, it's a long season, and I suppose you don't want to give up too much ground early. We found that out ourselves last year that teams were playing catch up on us early doors last year, and it's a lot easier when you're out ahead to stay ahead than it is for teams to catch up on. So we have to make sure that we're not playing catch up, and that we're setting the tempo and setting the bar every week.
Just the final two questions, Kevin. First and foremost, that I think it's fair to say that the win against Treaty, it was a big performance, a big win, but more importantly, it was a statement of intent. Would that be a fair objection on it?
Yeah, definitely. Look, Treaty were unbelievable last year for the first season in the league, and it's a place that's never easy to go. Even when it was Limerick were there, Marcusfield was never an easy place to go. It was always tough, and we knew what we were going into. And obviously, it was the third Munster derby in the space of 8 days, I think, for us, which was tough, because we'd put in so much into the other two to get the wins, and we had to make sure that we were ready to go again there on Friday. But it just shows, how confident the lads are at the minute, and how kind of informed they are, and how ready they are for the challenge, because it's going to be a hell of a season. It's going to be a long year, and we have to make sure we're up at the top, and if the lads keep performing the way they're performing, I've no doubt that we'll be up there come the end of
it. This kind of questions in two parts. A personal ambition for yourself, have you set any kind of quiet goals yourself for the course of the season? But also from someone, as we spoke off air, every time I've gone down to Cork during those titanic years between Dundalk and Cork, in those years between 2014 to 2018, it was it was fire and brimstone. But the thing about it is that, and I've said it, I think the Premier Division in an awful lot of respects is much poor without Cork City in it. So I think that it's, in some respects, I'm sure you'll agree with me that I know Stephen Kenny spoke about it, the lament of a non-Munster team in the Premier Division this year. But, your personal ambitions for the season, number one. But number two, how really important is it that a club of the size and the magnitude, but the passion and the structure and everything that Cork City has, is in the Premier Division?
Yeah, look, personal goals is just, I want to get this club back into the Premier Division. I've done it last year. I won the league last year, and that's all I want to do again this year, is to get the club back into the Premier Division. If I can chip in any way with goals and assists, that's always, I think I'm more set them up more than score them. But look, if I can chip in with a few myself, that's always well and good. But
another free kick will do, Kevin.
A few free kicks will do this year. Look, I just want to help the young lads as well. They're coming through. They're starting to break through, and they're starting to kind of put their own stamp on how they're going to be in this league. And anything I can do to help them. Obviously, I'm only 26, but I'm still one of the more experienced lads in the team. So anything I can do to help them, is a main goal of mine, because I was there when I was coming through, and I know how helpful it was for the lads that done it for me. So look, I just want to help the young lads get through, and hopefully then, as I said, we'll be there come the end of the season. But as for the club, it's huge. It's huge for the club to get back into the Premier Division. We've set the goal at the start of the season for that's what we have to do. It's winning the league has to be our goal, because it's such a big club, and I feel like we have the team to do it. Whereas if you end up setting a target for the playoffs, everybody knows how the playoffs can go. It's a lottery once you get into it. So our goal for this season has to be to win the league and win it outright. And I think there's 6 or 7 teams in the league this year that can actually do that. So it's going to be tough, but you can see that, like, if we're getting 5,000 at home games, that's going to drive us on, and that's going to encourage us to do better and better every time. And there's teams obviously in the Premier Division who might not even be getting half that attendance. So it's massive. It's massive for probably the league. It's big for the league, and it's huge for the club. To get Cork back into it, because, as you said, like, them rivalry games between Cork Dundalk, Cork Shamrock Rovers, they're all massive games. They attract a lot of, even Cork Shelbourne. It was a big game in the first division last year, but in the Premier Division, it obviously means a bit more. So it's massive to get the club back into the Premier Division, and that's our aim, and hopefully we can do that come the end of the year.
Listen, Kevin, thanks very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And if you can do me a favour, tell Mick Ring I was asking for him. I'm a very good friend of
I
his.
surely will.
Yeah,
no problem
he's a
at all.
lovely, lovely fella. But listen, the very best luck for the
Great.
season, and hopefully we'll have you on later on the week, later on the year, God willing.
Perfect. Anytime. Cheers, Karen. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
And that was Mick Ring. That was Kevin O'Doherty, sorry, I'm going to scrap all that. That was Kevin O'Connor. I'm getting all my names mixed up. That was Kevin O'Connor of Cork City. I want to thank him for coming on. Coming up next, we have an exclusive interview with Kevin O'Doherty of Drogheda United, who has registered a great first victory in the Louth Derby, the first time in 8 years in United Park. And he spoke to our first Final Whistle reporter after that game last Friday.
Well, Kevin, it was an absolute battle. You got there in the end.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was a battle, and I said it before. I had a feeling that it'd be a bit of fight. Look, derbies always are, but I thought they might set up against Rovers a 4-4-2, and I thought on our pitch they might do the same, and it would be a fight. But we stood up to it, and look, we were really, really good. You saw the game. We had 2 taken off the line. We hit the crossbar. We could have had 3 or 4 goals. Not saying that we dominated the game or anything like that. We certainly didn't, but we definitely had chances. But look, couldn't be proud of our lads. As you say, it was a battle, and we stood up and were big and strong and cleared things and defended well, which was something that I'd been giving out about for the last couple of weeks, about giving away sloppy goals. But we cut that out tonight, so it shows you when we do that, we have a platform we can go and win games.
Yeah, it seemed to work quite well with the 2 banks of 4 defensively, and then you were kind of breaking. How happy were you with what you saw from the last?
Very happy. Yeah, excellent. The lads at the back were excellent. Big, as I said, big, strong defenders being defenders, and just defending and doing the basics, which is what I've been asking. And we have done at times in game, but as I said, we've been punished for goals that we have given away. We didn't get punished tonight. We didn't really make any mistakes to get punished for. So no, and then look, as I said, the chances we had, we could have been more. So no, I'm delighted with the lads.
Absolutely, and the intensity levels as well were top class. You've Pats away next, so important. Do you think that 2 weeks? Yeah, so a bit of a break. But how important do you think it'll be that you keep them intensity levels up?
Well, look, again, that's the intensity levels after us, a part-time team in a full-time league, coming home from Derry at 2 o'clock on Tuesday morning, and our lads getting up, myself included, to go to work a couple of hours later. So it shows you the heart and the desire that the lads had, because it wasn't easy. Believe me, this week wasn't easy, but they stood up. As I said, they worked really, really, really hard. The intensity levels, the fitness levels, really, really happy and really proud of the lads.
Cheers.
Thank you.
And that was Con Sheehan, who spoke to Kevin Doherty after the Louth Derby there on last Friday. More important matters, we'll just go through the Premier Division table starting with, and Derry City are currently top on 14 points, followed by Sligo Rovers on 12. Then it's St Patrick's Athletic on 12, with Shamrock Rovers coming in at 11th. Dundalk currently sit in 8th position, followed by Bohemians, who are a point behind on 7. Then it's Shelbourne on 6 points, with Drogheda United on 5 after that first win of the season, or their second win of the season rather. Finn Harps are currently on 5 points, with UCD on 3. Just to give you the results of last weekend with the Premier Division results, UCD drew 1-1 in an early kick-off against Bohemians. Promise Cherry came in with Promise Cherry scored the opening goal, with UCD equalising in the second half. Derry City bet St Patrick's Athletic in a titanic battle up in the Brandywell to put them top. As I just mentioned there, the Louth Derby, the first of the spoils, went to Drogheda United with a penalty in the second half. But in all respects, it was a very, very good performance from the home side. And Stephen O'Donnell has already lamented that he will have his side have work to do. In relation to Shelbourne, they lost 3-0 to Finn Harps in what could be regarded as a bit of a surprising result, but not really that surprising if you're a Finn Harps fan, with Ollie Horgan once again grinding out a big result in the capital. Shamrock Rovers came back from behind after being 2-0 down. They came back to 2-2 with a own goal in the final minutes of the game, or an own goal in the final minutes of the game. So that is where we are in relation to the Premier Division. There's no Premier Division games this week. as there is a break in the league due to the international, with the Republic of Ireland playing in the next 2 weeks. So we're just going to look at the first division table very, very quickly before we have Denny Corcoran coming in. And that is the first division table starts like this. As we were talking to Kevin O'Connor there, Cork City top the pile with 13 points after 6 games, followed by Drogheda United, who are currently also on 13 points. They, however, do have a game in hand, but with the way that the league structure is, because there's only 9 teams, that'll balance itself out at some stage. In third place, Waterford FC on 10 points, while Wexford FC are currently on 6. Bray Wanderers are currently on 6 points as well, while Longford Town, despite the fact that they do technically have 2 to 3 games currently in hand at the moment, they are sitting on 4 points. After that is Treaty United, who are currently on 4 points. Tommy Barrett's side do have a game or 2 in hand, followed by Cove Ramblers, who are currently on 4 points, and Athlone Town are currently on 0. So they will be facing Cork City this weekend. We're going to come up with our next guest, and it is Wexford FC striker Denny Corcoran. Denny, I know you're on the side of the road. You've pulled in just after training, but it's delighted to hear from you.
Hey, Karen, how's it going?
Great. Not a bother. Denny, we'll get straight into it because I know you're on your way home. But 2 wins in 5, but you've been very close in those games. Like the Waterford match, which you only lost 2-1. What have you made of the season so far since you've signed for Wexford?
Yeah, we've been a bit inconsistent, I'd say. At times we've been really good and then others not so good, which I think the table kind of shows that. We've had a few good wins and then a few bad losses. So I just think we need to be more consistent, because I think at times we've played really well. So if we can just play more, like I said, more consistent, we'll pick up more points, yeah.
You made the switch from Drogheda to Wexford. You had a bit start season at Drogheda last year, but what enticed you to go to Wexford this season?
I'd say I think Ian Ryan had a lot to do with it. Like I'd have known Ian. I played with him for over 10 years ago now, so I knew him. But yeah, I just wanted to go somewhere where I knew I'd play quite a bit, because the last few years have been terrible through injury. I've missed a lot, so that was my main focus, just to play. And yeah, like I said, Ian had plans for me, good plans for me. He told me what he wanted from me from the season, and it sounded good, and I was excited about it. So yeah, I was happy to join.
Ian Ryan, you just spoke about him there. He's a manager who's getting an awful lot of praise since he took over at Wexford. He was assistant manager at UCD, got the Wexford job. This season's probably, how have you found him as a manager? I know you said that you played with him, but how have you found him as a manager in that coaching role?
Yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant, I think. Obviously, he's very young and he's kind of at the start of his managerial career, but he's brilliant. He doesn't leave any stone unturned. He's so professional. He's all his opposition analysis have been spot on so far. He's very professional about his work, and I think he'll have a great career going forward. Yeah.
Just a follow up on that, do you think that probably working at a club like UCD as assistant manager, where they've been known to have very, very good facilities, but also they've a very good coaching and management strategy, do you think he's kind of brought that to Wexford, which has probably helped the club?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, he was assistant. He would have learned a lot there. And he was used to working with young players. Like we've a young squad at Wexford now, so that'll stand to him. But yeah, he seems to give it 100% in everything he does, and he's very focused on the task at hand. And he, like I said already, he really does so much work off the pitch as well as on it. So like I said, yeah, I think things are only going to go up for him. Yeah.
We've said it time and time again. We were talking to Kevin O'Connor just a couple of minutes ago on this podcast that the first division is probably the most competitive it's been in a long time. Compared to the first division, do you think there's been this constant kind of, how would you say, there's been kind of this ignorance towards it that the quality isn't as good, but do you think that gap's getting smaller now in terms of quality and standards between the Premier Division and the First Division?
Probably is. I'd say it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely a competitive league this year. I mean, the likes of Waterford and Cork full time, Galway full time. You know, I think it must be the first time in a good while that there's been a few full time first division clubs. You know, and only nine teams in the league, and there's 5 places up for grabs with rewards. Like in terms of obviously the winners go straight up, and then second to fifth get playoffs. You know, so a lot to play for, and it's going to be such a tight league and competitive league. You're seeing results already. It's very unpredictable, and in terms of quality, yeah, I've been surprised that the quality of the league. I haven't played in a while now, but there's some really good players there and some good teams, and I think the gap is closing between the first and the Premier. Yeah.
You've had some interesting moments. We spoke about this yesterday when we were just chatting initially. Like, you've had some interesting key moments in your career. Is there one that stands out for you as like, that's my Denny Corcoran moment?
I suppose playing for Bows, beating Rovers, and I've scored the winner in 3 of them games. They were special games to play in. I mean, the fans live for them games, and it's a massive occasion. It's probably the biggest game in the country, you know. And to get the winner, it's great feeling. And I'd probably pick them. I mean, I did play in Europe with St. Pat's, but I probably only came on for I think 10 or 15 minutes in the game, so I wouldn't really pick that, you know. Although it is a great honour to have. But yeah, I'd just say that the Bows games against Rovers, and I was lucky enough to be so involved in a few of them. I think we went 8 or 9 on the trot unbeaten against them. Great time. So yeah, I'd probably pick him.
I know players have always specific targets. Is there one that you have secretly put away? Is there a goal target for this season that you're willing to reveal, or is that under lock and chain, so to speak?
No secrets. No, actually, I don't really set targets in terms of a figure to reach. You know, I just take every game as it comes. The main thing for me now is to stay fit and stay injury free and enjoy it again, which I am. And then yeah, I aim to score every match I play in, so I don't set targets. You might disappoint yourself if you're quite far away from them. You know what I mean? So I just kind of take every game as it comes, try and score every game, and do as much as I can for the team. But no, I don't really set personal targets. I never have.
Okay. And finally, you know, you spoke there that you've got a very young team. You're currently sitting in 4th position in the league. We spoke about the playoffs there. Is that a realistic ambition that's something that you're pushing for? You want to break into that top 3, top 4 in order to secure a playoff spot come the end of the season? Because Wexford have been in the Premier Division. They were a great addition to it. So it would be great if, you know, that playoff journey could bring something magical.
Yeah, I think playoffs is a realistic aim. I mean, I'm sure there's probably 5 or 6 clubs that will say that, you know, like we talked about, it's very competitive. But yeah, I think that's our aim. Maybe not win it. Maybe winning it is a bit far off. I mean, like we said, the full-time teams have advantages on us, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I think playoffs would be a successful season, and I don't see why we can't make it. It won't be easy, but I think that's our aim as a team. And it's early days, you know. There's still so much to play, but I think it's a realistic goal, yeah, and hopefully we can get it.
Well, listen, I want to thank you very much. I think you need to get home and get some rest after training. But listen, Denny, thanks very much for chatting to us today, and the best of luck for the rest of the season. And hopefully, we might have you on near the end of the year. Yeah,
thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, Denny.
All right, Karen. Cheers.
And that was Denny Corcoran. And now coming into the final segment of our live podcast this evening, I'm going to have Finalwhistle.ie correspondent and host of Around the Grounds here on Finalwhistle.ie, which you can catch on match nights here on all our social media channels, is Diarmuid Kearney for a comprehensive fixtures and look around the First Division. Diarmuid, great to have you.
Kieran, thanks for having me on yet again.
Not at all. Diarmuid, let's get started. Last weekend, with the fact that it was the bank holiday, and there was the double bank holiday, if we want to call it that, and there was the kind of games were spaced out a little bit. But the first game that really kind of came out of the traps was, I spoke to Kevin O'Connor about it. Drogheda United got a big blow in their push in the league this year by Cork City defeating them 4-0.
Yeah, I suppose a bit of a baptism of fire when it comes to your first game of the season at your home stadium. I suppose they have. A lot has been said about the pitch at the Markets Field. I saw a couple of photos of it on social media leading up to the game. It looked questionable, but look, credit to all the Treaty players. They did their best on the day, but Cork looked that step above them. They have looked strong this year. A 4-0 hiding in a Munster derby. It's not the best result for you. It's a great result for Cork. Don't get me wrong. They will be delighted with that result. I'm sure they went home that evening knowing that we've laid a marker down for the rest of the clubs. But it was a 3 o'clock kickoff, so I don't know if any of the other teams that were playing that night had paid attention to the game. But definitely for Treaty and for Tommy Barrett especially, a crucial game that is slipped away from him, and hopefully, you're coming up against tougher opposition in the next couple of weeks as well. So it hasn't gone to plan so far for Treaty this year. They were the fairy tale story of last year, but it's just something's just not clicking for them at the moment.
Could it be? I don't want to be disrespectful or anything to anybody at Treaty or anything like that, but there's always that talk of the second season bounce or the slump or whatever it may be. Could that be a case that they're not that they've been kind of found out or anything like that, but it's just it's just a different style, and also the league is completely different this year compared to last year, so it's so much more competitive.
Yeah, I suppose it is competitive now. I suppose when you talk about the second year blip, I suppose a team like Cork are showing their form after being down in the first division for a bit now, and I guess you will see that. Waterford, of course, they've turned their fortunes around this year, but for Treaty, I guess a team that lost a couple of players. They brought in numbers as well during the transfer window, but I don't know. I don't know whether it's a case of Treaty just need those couple of results to get them kickstarted. I don't know whether the match cancellations helped them. If those games hadn't been called off, would we be talking different about them and say, look, it would have been a top of the table clash between the two teams? I'm not sure. It all depends on, look, speculation is one thing, I suppose, when we're talking about the league. The results didn't happen for them. When the games are refixed, are they going to get 6 points out of them? That's up for debate as well. But Tommy isn't one of those managers who's gonna settle for second best. He knows what to do. He's been around here numerous times. He knows Limerick teams inside and out. I think he knows what to get out of the players. It's just a case of getting those results and turning your fortunes around. But a 4-0 defeat to your neighbours, it's not a good result. And coming up against the likes of Waterford and Galway, those type of teams, they could struggle again, to be honest.
Athlone Town were defeated by Galway United, but that's 0 points. It's a difficult start to a season, which they have made, kind of big signs. Gary Armstrong was seen as a big coup. They have Michael Schligerman. It's just not clicking for them at the moment, but Galway United are now joint top with Cork. It's where they want to be.
Yeah, I suppose I mentioned at the start when we were previewing the season as well, John Caulfield wasn't happy to be back in the division this year. He wanted to go up last year. He prepared a squad to go up last year, and it didn't work out for him in the end. And I think he is going for blood this year. He has strengthened in numbers, and they're looking at a team that are just chomping at the bit at the moment. They went down to Turner's Cross. They got the result against Cork. Now they took Waterford. Waterford came up and they drew with them at home. That's, I suppose, a point earned rather than 3 points squandered or whatever the case may be. But look, for Galway, they are looking strong this year. I suppose the team in general, they're getting great support down at Eamon DC Park this year. There is a buzz around the city as well for the team in general. And I suppose it is a case of different fortunes for Athlone. They are, I suppose, not having the best of times in the division this season. But at times, at that night against Galway, they did show sparks of quality, and they did show, what they are capable of. It was just a case of just Galway, it's clicking for them under him. And I suppose, look, we have been talking about Galway and that top three, and I suppose this is a case, we were talking to Dinny about it there as well. Like, this division has been the busiest it's ever been this year in terms of these results and coming through, but the competitive nature of the league, the likes of your Galway, your Waterford and your Cork, like you need to be on top form so far, and to credit to Galway, they've led by example so far from the start of the season, to be honest.
Wexford were defeated last weekend by Longford Town, but let's not forget what Longford had a bit of a delayed start to their season. But that's a big result for them on so many respects, because they are in some respects playing catch up, but they need to gather the points as quick as possible on kind of those back matches. But Gary Cronin does have to stamp his mark on the league as well.
Yeah, I suppose it could be the same thing as for Treaty. They've only played a handful of games so far this season, while the rest of the teams above them have already fulfilled the full fixture list that they've been handed so far. And, it is tough to prepare a squad where you're unsure whether the fixture is going to go ahead. It goes ahead, and now you're looking at another fixture, and, match sharpness might come down a little bit, but they showed their quality the last night. Now, this is a team that have come down from last year, but will they stay afloat this year? Can they contest the playoffs? It'd be interesting to see if they can rubber stamp their place in that come the end of the season. They've showed quality in spades. They took Cork City for a scoreless draw at home. That was a good result for them, I suppose, when it was one of their opening fixtures in the league, to be honest with you. So, from that regards, Longford are a team that should definitely not be diminished of their quality. But looking at a team like Wexford as well, Wexford, we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, it was a top of table clash between them and Waterford down in the RSC in one of the game weeks. They've looked strong this year. So to get a result against them definitely is a result that they wanted. But whether they can turn this form now, build up the points and start getting up the table would be interesting to see over the next few weeks.
Just looking at the table, it's as what we would have expected. The top three, Cork, Galway, Waterford, Wexford, then in fourth, which could be seen as a bit of a surprise. Then you've got Bray, Longford, Treaty, Cove, and then Athlone. Wexford, once again, we did say that there could be the surprise package. That was to be expected. Hopefully that, I think, we spoke to Kevin O'Connor about this. You're looking at three teams in that top four that are in Munster. I think the lack of Munster representation in the Premier Division this season has been a huge loss. So for one of those teams to go back up, hopefully at the end of the year, that would be a huge coup for the league, but it's important for the region as well.
Yeah, I suppose the sport is massive down here, and there is the big following, and I suppose when everything happened with Limerick FC folding, it seemed a big loss for Limerick in general and the province that we were to lose such a big and prestigious team for us. And then when Treaty came around, there was a big buzz that we have another team entering the division. Now you have three contesting the first division. Two are, as we've said, are challenging for the top of the table, whereas Treaty are just kind of lingering around there at the moment. But definitely, the support down here, and if these talks of a third division do come into it, it'd be interesting to see how many Munster teams are put into the hat to go through with this. If talks are progressing, that there is a couple of teams interested, but the likes of the support down in Waterford and in Cork at the moment, we've seen the buzz around Turner's Cross this year for the couple of games that they've hosted down there. Upwards of 4,000 people coming down to first division. They're obsessed with the sport down at Leeside at the moment, and it's evident that if Cork City can get the results again and go back up, you'll have nearly 3,500 to 4,500 people down on Leeside every night next year if they're in the Premier Division against, for revenue for a club like Cork and to promote the sport and get those academy lads coming back up. They do want to be up in the Premier Division, same as Waterford, same as Treaty. Treaty want to get their first experience Premier Division football. I know some of the lads in the squad have had that experience before, but as a club, to be fan created in a whim on a couple of days, and within 2 to 3 seasons you're in the top flight for the first time, that'd be a remarkable achievement for them.
Absolutely. If we can just turn our attentions to just the Premier Division table just for a couple of minutes. If you were to say after 6 games that the league table would look the way it is, I think it's very much, I think we kind of had an inclination how the first division was going to go, but certainly not the Premier Division. Like, we knew that Derry was going to be up there. there or thereabouts. But I don't think anybody could have predicted the position, and I'm not being disrespectful to anybody, the position that Shamrock Rovers are in. You know, they're currently sitting in fourth. They've lost already 2 games this year. You know, St. Pat's are in third. Sligo, a side who, I'm going to be quite honest with you, I didn't think there would be thereabouts in any shape or form at the beginning of the year, but there they are. You know, it just shows you that this league no one's going to run away with it, for one thing, and the other thing is that it's going to be really, really exciting when we go into those big months, you know, for June, July, August, September kind of era when it really kicks in.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, when we were previewing the league at the start of the season, we both agreed that, you know, Shamrock Rovers are going to be contesting top of the table for the majority of the season. It's going to be very interesting up top. And then it was kind of like, who will be second and third contesting it? But now St. Pat's and Sligo have come out of the woodwork, and they've, you know, showed that they can not just make up the numbers in the league, they can actually contest the teams like Shamrock Rovers, for example. And, you know, if you'd said to me, you know, a couple of weeks ago that it'd be, you know, Derry would be near the top of the table, I'd agree with you. I previewed that Derry would be second, if not third in the table. They would be contesting Shamrock Rovers. They'd give them a good run through, especially when they defeated them up at the Brandywell that night. I definitely thought, you know, definitely Derry, to their credit, are looking strong. But for Sligo to come out of nowhere and be contesting the top of the table, I wouldn't be having that a couple of weeks ago. But now the football that they're playing has been very, very strong for them. Now, the pitch at showgrounds at the best of times hasn't been great. The night against Dundalk, I didn't see it as a League of Ireland ground, to be honest with you. I suppose the standard of grounds that I've seen in a couple of images this year hasn't been great, but, you know, they've used it. They've got points at home, away from home. You know, Sligo, to their credit, are showing that, you know, you don't have to be one of the big boys to compete in the league. They have a good squad, a good manager at the wheel. I can't see why Sligo can't continue their charge and stay in the European places, even, to be honest with you.
The one thing that was just one comment on Derry. Derry are doing what Shamrock Rovers have been doing for years, and that's those last second goals. They did it against Pats. They've done it against Shamrock Rovers. It nearly did it against Dundalk. It goes to show you that's an embedded culture that's just driven into sides, but driven into successful sides.
Yeah, I suppose the philosophy that's going in Derry at the moment is you don't give up until you hear the final whistle. Pardon the pun, to be honest. It's a bit of product placement, that, actually. But it is funny, like, watching their games this year and seeing how many results are coming within those final few minutes. The hunger, the ambition of, you know, we're chasing the goal. It's almost like you're not leaving here unless we get the result. Like, we need to leave with something. They've done it numerous times this year. It's just, I think they have the drive and ambition this year to challenge for the title. We've seen them top of the table at the moment, and, you know, they've made good of the chances that are left behind with, you know, Shamrock Rovers dropping points, and obviously they do have a game in hand as well, when the UCD game got called off, so they'll be looking forward to that game whenever it gets refixed. I think it might be fixed for, I think it's 2 weeks in April or something like that. But, you know what, I suppose it is a good, I don't know if it's more of the players themselves, or whether it's Rory Higgins' philosophy as a manager to say, the game is played over 90 minutes. If there's a little bit of time added on late on and we're searching for a goal, you leave everything out there. If we didn't get the result in the end, at least you tried. I think that's what he's put onto the players, and it's definitely worked for them this season.
Back onto the focus of the first division. We've got 4 fixtures for this weekend. As we know, there's no Premier Division matches. Trinity United are at home to Waterford. Bray are at home to Wexford. Cork City at home to Athlone, and Longford are at home to Galway United. All of those kickoffs are Friday evening at 7:45. Galway-Longford seems to be the game of the week. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting tie, because I suppose with Waterford going down to Treaty and seeing how they played against Cork last week, and Cork taking on Athlone and Turner's Cross, for me it looks like it's going to be a result for both Cork and Waterford in that regards, unless we see something come out from Tracy or Athlone and produce that little bit of magic that we've seen them in stages so far this year. But Longford picking up their win, they'll be looking to build on that momentum. But obviously, John Caulfield will know that if he is to lead a team that's going to get into the Premier Division next year, you need to beat Longford. You need to beat these, the scrappy games away from home, as well as taking teams to Eamon DC Park and getting your results that way. But I suppose Longford will be chomping at the bit this weekend. They'll want these results as well. They want relegated last year, as I said earlier, they want to get back up. It'll be interesting to see if can they get the result against a team like Galway, who have been showing their class this year. But I suppose if when John Caulfield sees the games elsewhere, obviously he won't be able to see them in real time because all the games are at the same time. But he'll know that when your two title rivals are taking on at the same time, you're level with Cork at the moment. You don't want to be dropping points, even though we're only at the early stages of the season. This is the time that you want to build your title charge and then keep going toward into the summer months until the end of the season. If they slip up against Longford, that's a big result for Cork. And Cork don't need a second chance. If they can get 3 or 4 points ahead of you in the table, they'll take it and run, to be honest.
The Bray Wexford one is quite interesting. Just to finish, this is going to be the last game we'll look at. Bray and Wexford are currently on equal points. A win for either side will leapfrog them into the kind of what I call the safety pocket of the playoff position, so to speak. So it's a big game in all accounts, and Bray really, really want to get their season going. I know they've won 2, but they have lost 3. So it's a case that they kind of need to get that winning momentum going.
Yeah, I suppose we're talking about momentum. The start of the season for them wasn't a great experience. They were struggling in the early few games. They found their feet, but taking on a Wexford team who have definitely surprised us all and been a little bit of a surprise package. And, someone like Denny Corcoran.
We did say that, though. We did say it, that there could be the potential.
Yeah, and, a player like Denny Corcoran in their ranks, it's definitely a game that it could be the game of the night on Friday night, or it could be a dismal 1-0 or a 0-0 draw or something like that. But you never know what you're going to get out of Bray and Wexford. But definitely Wexford will be going into the game knowing, if we can get a result here, depending on what happens between Galway and Longford, you could definitely see them going up the table, and they could be challenging for higher up in the table. You just never know what the season has. We've said about how competitive the first division is this year. It's very hard to call. To be fair, it's been very hard to call. We've been completely surprised by even the Premier Division results this year, not mind the first division. I suppose we did expect that the top 3 would be the top 3, but for a team like Wexford, who were looking one of the weaker teams when we were hyping up Treaty and stuff like that, they've definitely come out of the woodwork, and Bray, to their credit, are a decent team, but I don't think their form going into this game will see them getting a result against Wexford, to be honest with you.
Listen, Diarmuid, thanks very much, and will we be catching you on Friday evening for Around the Grounds? Yeah, we will indeed. Another bumper weekend of it anyway coming up on Friday. We will have that, and then of course we'll have Women's National League games then on Saturday as well. We'll be doing another Around the Grounds, since we're kept busy anyway with the live coverage, to be honest with you. Yeah, that's brilliant, and listen, we all look forward to it. So once again, thanks very much, Diarmuid, and we'll speak to you next week, hopefully. Perfect, Kieran. Thanks for having me on. No problem. And that's our lot for this week. I want to thank, first of all, Kevin O'Connor of Cork City and Denny Corcoran of Wexford. Diarmuid Kearney, once again, of Finalwhistle.ie for coming on and giving his thoughts. To Colleen Duffy, who's on production this evening. I'm King Kieran Callan. I will see you next week. And whatever First Division ground you're going to this weekend, enjoy it and hope it's a good one.